What's good, y'all? It's Classic MMA. Today I'll be doing my stylistic breakdown of Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer, which will be going down this Saturday. So, in my opinion, this is a pretty interesting fight. I mean, both guys have big arguments on why they should win. So today I'm going to be breaking that down. So, starting off, I'm going to start with their strengths and weaknesses. So, Israel Adesanya's strengths: great distance management can make him very hard to hit as fights go later. Like, he's just very good at managing distance, fighting technically, fighting smart. Avoiding big shots, like especially like when on the front foot or the back foot, either way, doesn't matter. Yeah, Izzy's distance management, he's always been elite at that though. We've been on that. Decent offensive boxing is a solid jab, which he's able to use to set up like nice like jabs, so like body combinations. He's able to mix up targets decently well. He's pretty good at hitting the body. Has improved a lot in his offensive boxing action in recent years, like his last couple fights, even though they haven't won his way, obviously. Like against Amavov and DDP, he was landing in the boxing. Like he was landing pretty well with like right hooks. Against DDP, he was working the body well, which made him pretty tired later in the fight. So pretty solid, decent like offensive boxing from Adesanya. Amazing kicks from low kicks. His low kicks, they're famous. He's won fights just circling around throwing them. Hey, bro, real ones. Remember when he would say he would leave you frozen like Elsa and then beat you by 48-47 boring decision. But pretty good, amazing body kicks, high kicks are there. Kind of just able to spam kicks effectively. I mean, he's a high level kickboxer from the glory days, like from glory kickboxing. So yeah, high level feinting game. He's very good at feinting. Uses it a lot, feints a lot to make his opponents, draws reactions out well. Can gas you out a bit, take some of your cardio. Like feinting is actually more effective than you think. Elite cardio has been going 5 rounds for near a decade at this point. I mean, when was his first 5 round fight? Like against Gastelum in like 2018, 2017. So yeah, over like 8 years spent doing 5 round fights at this point. He was the middleweight champion for a pretty long time. So you know, great takedown defense is nearly impossible to control or submit. Honestly, like unless he's hurt on the feet. I know people are gonna point to the DDP fight, but that submission only happened because of the what's called because Izzy got rocked pretty badly on the feet, and then after this dude pointed down, Sheba, brother, Ugh. Brother pointed down and then proceeded to get colded 2 seconds later. Izzy, where have the glory days went, bro? But DDP was actually kind of struggling to do anything with him on the ground. Like he could take him down every now and then, but before like the finish, he wasn't really able to get nothing done, and as he was pretty usually just standing up. And I mean, a lot of his fights against like a high level grappler like Derek Brunson stuffed a lot of his takedowns. You know, like against Robert Whitaker, was able to avoid him, allowing him to do pretty much any damage on the ground in their second fight. Like he got a couple takedowns, but he wasn't really able to do anything with them. Like the only fight we've ever really seen him like held down and controlled was like the Jan Blachowicz fight, but that was at 205 when Izzy was like a midget. So, or not a midget, but I don't know, dude just did not have a build for a 205er. So, anyways, Izzy has some pretty good strengths, but what comes with the strengths is also the weaknesses. So let's discuss those. So Israel Adesanya's weaknesses. He has awful boxing. He has like awful defensive boxing. He's prone to just lean back with his chin back, like he did against Amavov, or no, he was caught switching stances. Actually, my bad. Like he was caught against DDP when he got caught on the feet before the sub, and he's gotten caught multiple times for it. I mean, we saw this against DDP. In fights he hasn't even got finished, we saw him get rocked against Kelvin Gastelum. And his boxing defense used to be better because he had the reflexes to get out of the way of punches and was a lot faster, like in terms of like his head movement and stuff. In 2026 though, this brother sucks at his defensive boxing. Yeah, it's definitely not what he used to be. He has a worsening chin. He's been through 2 wars with Alex Pereira, who was a 220-pound middleweight, and he was also just KO'd by Mavov, dropped by Strickland, took a ton of damage in that fight. Rocked by DDP and then finished on the ground. So his chin has definitely taken some damage, and he doesn't seem to have the same like reaction speeds needed for his style as he once had. Like he isn't like as fast, kind of like an Anderson Silva vibe. Anyways, moving on to Salty Joe Pyfer. Joe Pyfer's strengths: one punch knockout power for the first 3 rounds of a fight, and if you're not careful, you will get your lights put out. Like Joe Pyfer with in particular his rear hand can generate some pretty insane power. Like just with his rear hand, like using his rear hand, that's pretty much all he throws. But if he lands that on you, and he's landed that on nearly all of his opponents, and they've dropped. Even the fight that he lost against Jack Hermanson, he dropped him. So Pyfer definitely has that one punch knockout power. Solid submission game, went on the ground. As he showcased against Boost, Magomedov was able to, have a tough first round with the Boost, who's a grappler himself, nearly get submitted, but come back and get the drop him on the feet and then lock up a sub, which is interesting here against Izzy. Pressures pretty well, is really good at pressuring, walking you down on the front foot, making you scared of him. And he's able to overwhelm a lot of his opponents because of it. I mean, we've seen this in a lot of his fights. I mean, against Marc-Andre Barrier, who just walks him down, gives him no space, rear hand, he's dead. That's kind of a lot of Joe Pyfer's fights. Then what comes to the strengths, the weaknesses. So Joe Pyfer's weaknesses, he's very one-dimensional when he's not able to land his rear hand, as he begins to kind of just look clueless out there. He doesn't have much else boxing-wise besides a rear hand. Besides, a strong rear hand, which is a very strong rear hand. It hits like a truck, and if you get hit by it, you are getting colded. But as soon as he's not able to land that, he's kind of useless. Has pretty mediocre cardio as he starts to gas after 2 rounds, as that's why we saw him lose against Jack Hermanson, who he won the first 2 rounds. Would have won that fight if it was a 3-rounder, but since it was a 5-rounder, gassed kind of badly, and Hermanson was able to win the last 3. And he also had a competitive fight with Kelvin Gastelum. Dropped him twice in the first 2 rounds, I believe, first round or two, but then just gassed horribly after that and was kind of getting boxed up by fat Kelvin Gastelum, who's a professional taco eater. So good job, Joe Pyfer. Pretty mid offensive wrestling. Isn't really able to get takedowns against even decent level opponents unless they're super gassed like a Boost. If you look, people will try to tell you, dude, Salt's Joe Pyfer, dude. His grappling's elite, man. He trains with Sean Brady. He be getting in working there in Philly. I don't believe it, bro. This guy can't hit a double leg. He has a blast double leg like a wrestler from DC's time, but other than that, he's nothing. And he's just super. One thing I want to note here is he's very overly reactive to feints. He will just sometimes when a lot of the times when people feint at him, like Jack Hermanson, he'll just jump right back, which it's not a great tendency to have. I just gotta be honest. Jumping back every time someone feints at you is wow. So now for who I think wins this fight. I think Israel Adesanya is going to win this fight by 49-46 decision. Now you may ask why. Let's get into it. I'll give you my reasons. Level of competition and experience gap. This is the first thing. So if we look at Israel Adesanya's last 3 fights, lost to Mavov by a KO, getting courted by Mavov ain't the best look in the world, but he won the first round and he was winning the second round before the eye poke. And Mavov's arguably the best pure boxer at 185. He's kind of just been he kind of outclasses most of these guys. I mean, we saw that Caio Brahalo fight. Caio didn't even look at Mavov's realm in that fight. And Adesanya was winning the striking before the eye poke, and then he tried to clip for him and got quartered for it. Lost to DDP by round 4 sub after a competitive fight. I mean, DDP was the middleweight champ, was on pace to be the middleweight GOAT. Not a bad loss at all. And Izzy was arguably if he doesn't point down like an idiot, he was winning that 4th round, and then he would have been up then the fight would have been either 3-1 Izzy or 2-2, depending on how the judges viewed it. I can't remember, but I know it was something like that. Then he had a loss to Strickland by decision, but awful stylistic matchup. As Strickland is a very high level and was able to high level boxer who has impeccable defense, is able to check every one of your low kicks. Joe Pyfer isn't that. I'm just gonna put that out there. Joe Pyfer isn't Sean Strickland. And Sean Strickland's, the second, third best middleweight in the world. Knocked out Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Knocked out Fluffy Hernandez, my bad. So. And then for Pyfer's last 3 fights, win by sub against Ubus Magomedov, who's now unranked. I don't even know if he was top 15 when Joe Pyfer beat him, but after nearly getting subbed in the first round by Ubus, before Ubus gassed, Ubus Magomedov is not a good fighter. This guy got colded badly by Sean Strickland, genuinely concussed by him. Abus, I mean, he has a win over Bruno Ferreira, I guess. But, he has like 2 minutes of cardio. I mean, if you see that him and Michelle Pereira, that was how he got ranked, was being Michelle Pereira. Both those guys look gassed. So then he won by decision against Kelvin Gastelum, where he dropped him multiple times early in the fight, but gassed badly. And was kind of getting pieced up by Gastelum after he gassed really badly, which, I mean, Kelvin Gastelum's not a high-level fighter. Like, he's just not, bro. Like, he's a professional taco eater that misses weight every other fight, and you're gassing badly and nearly losing to him. That's a bad look. He has in his other one, his other one's a KO win over Marc-Andre Barrios, who's like 4-11 in the UFC. He's pretty low level himself. So, well, now why is this important? You may ask. I'll tell you why. I don't know why that just did that. Don't ask. Izzy has only been losing to the top of the division and indecently, competitive fights against guys like DDP, where the fight could have against DDP could have been 2-1 Izzy, and before the eye poke against Emma Avov, Izzy was winning. And on the contrary, Pyfer has been having competitive fights with pretty low level guys. Guys like Kelvin the Blob Gastelum, professional taco eater. Abus Magomedov, a guy with literally 2.5 minutes of cardio in him. And also, Pyfer hasn't lost to Jack Hermanson, which hasn't aged, particularly well. So, Izzy's going to have that big experience gap. Former champ, been losing to the top elite guys as of late, and now getting a huge step down here. Now, the blueprint, and this is my next reason, the blueprint to beat Pyfer is already laid out. Pyfer's loss to Jack Hermanson showed a lot and tells me a lot about how this fight will go. In that fight, Hermanson, a decent technical kickboxer with great sub ability, was able to win just by using Pyfer's experience against him. Hermanson was able to really hurt Pyfer's lead leg with low kicks, which caused him to not be able to throw the same power shots as he wasn't able to, square up, and because Hermanson really messed him up with low kicks. And then Pyfer was also just extremely reactive to feints in this fight, which caused him to not be able to win any of the last 3 rounds after a good first and second round because his cardio was all gone. And also after this fight, coincidentally, Hermanson has now gone on to lose 2 straight by KO to Robocop and a welterweight in Mitsubek Orabai. Like, genuinely, Hermanson's chin has vanished from him. Clean side. Like, just went away. And that's who Pyfer lost to, so yeah. And now I'm going to tell you how Izzy will use this. Izzy is one of the best kickers in the UFC, including low kicks, which he's very good at. And if Pyfer can't check Hermanson's low kicks, he might be in for a rude awakening here, because if Jack Hermanson is nearly breaking your front leg, then Izzy's gonna borderline amputate you here. Like, it's not gonna be good, bro. Izzy's also very feint heavy, and if Pyfer happens to be very reactionary to feints here, like he has in his other fights, then that's gonna sap his gas tank even faster than it did in the Hermanson fight. Izzy will just feint around at range and do nothing sometimes, if you're willing to play his game. Then Izzy has also just been in championship fights so much at this point that Pyfer will essentially be cooked if he gasses here. I don't see him getting like a late round KO against Izzy. Like, if Izzy survives the first couple rounds and doesn't get caught or nothing, Pyfer's fried. We just gotta make that. Izzy's very good at managing his cardio and will low kick the living death out of Joe Pyfer. Like, so now for how this fight will go. I think the first and the second round will be very hard for Izzy, as he'll have to avoid Pyfer's power shots. Pyfer just hit like a truck, has a crazy rear hand. He's very one-dimensional in his striking, but that one thing he's good at, he's very good at. However, since he is coming off a knockout loss, though, I see Izzy being more careful here, trying to avoid Pyfer's power shots a bit more than he was against like a Mavov, against DDP, and using low kicks to damage his legs. And I see him using feints, draw reactions, and just try to sap his cardio. Then I think after the first and second round, this fight turns into an Izzy masterclass. Pyfer's cardio is pretty terrible, and I see Izzy winning like a 49-46 or 48-47 decision. So anyways, that's all I have for y'all. Let me know what y'all thought of the video. Who do y'all think's gonna win? Drop y'all's predictions. And I'll have my full card predictions for the UFC Seattle card out on Thursday, so keep your eyes out for that. Anyways, I'm gonna catch y'all later. Peace.